Over the years, I've discovered something about the very best business leaders. They fully activate the passion and the skill and the talent of the people who work for them. And it's what these leaders do consistently and without fail because they're devoted to their own success, their company's success, the customer's success. And they know for that to happen, that they must also be devoted to the success of the people who work for them. For them, that belief is a non-negotiable. But that practice runs straight into a hard truth that most leaders don't take time to slow down long enough to actually implement, which leads us to one of the most frustrating experiences a highly engaged, high performer will ever have, knowing that they could bring more to the table than they currently are. And that's a fundamental truth worth naming. Now, high performers are conscientious people. They want to excel. They are driven to deliver regardless of their title, what they get paid, or what their role is. They care about doing great work. And I'll tell you this, they're not nearly as rare as most leaders think. But here's the part that's uncomfortable to confront, but absolutely vital to say. It's highly likely that you're not getting the best out of the people who work for you. It's not because they're withholding effort or they lack drive, and it's probably not because they're less capable than you thought. The reasons are more layered than that because fully engaging the talent, the ability, the skills, even the psyche of another human being, it's difficult work. And if I'm going to be honest about addressing this with you, we have to start by acknowledging this. The way that you run your business isn't optimized to get the most out of people. If we really look at how most companies are set up, they're built to manage the work, not people. They focus on tasks and timelines and making sure things stay predictable, because predictability produces results that you can forecast and work toward. But this conventional approach doesn't come close to getting the best thinking or the best ideas or the best effort out of the people who are doing the work. Now, this is the reason why leaders and managers often unintentionally mistake baseline activity for real performance. In other words, when someone is reliable and meets expectations and they don't rock the boat, it's easy to think you're getting the best out of them. But measured performance only tells you what's being delivered. It tells you nothing about how much capacity is still sitting there unused. And this is where a massive amount of wasted energy hides in plain sight in your business. Now, let's be real here. People do tend to operate within the narrow band of what the environment asks of them. They do what the role requires. They tend to respond to the level of challenge that's in front of them. But what they don't automatically do is give you everything they're capable of, usually because time constraints or scope and things like that. And here's where this tends to get misunderstood. In most cases, managers and leaders are doing exactly what they were taught to do. And they're also doing exactly what the system asks of them. There are plenty of people in management and leadership who genuinely care about their people. But don't miss this. Caring about people and getting the best out of them, they're not the same thing. That's why so much capacity goes unused inside otherwise healthy organizations. And this is also where most leaders stop looking for more, because if you believe you're already getting the best out of your people, there's no reason to look any deeper. No reason to question whether more is possible. No reason to examine how much of their ability or their creativity, their good judgment is actually being called into play. That's why most operations-driven companies are operating far below their true potential, because engaging a high performer requires a level of leadership most of us were never taught. So I want to give you 3 assumptions around this to avoid. First is stop assuming that good performance equates to full contribution. Monitoring output only tells you what's happening, but it doesn't tell you what's possible. So if you never stop and question whether you're really seeing what someone is capable of, you'll end up getting exactly as much from them as your system knows how to ask for, and no more. Secondly, pay attention to what your environment actually asks of people. Don't settle for what you think it is. Challenge yourself to identify areas where you're strong and areas where you might be accepting complacency. Ask yourself questions like, who gets real ownership? Who gets stretched? Who gets protected? Who do you help so often that they never really get to own it? These kind of questions highlight the most common ways a leader limits how much people can bring, and it usually comes from really good intentions. Over time, though, this teaches people how much runway they actually have or how much they don't have, how far they're allowed to go before someone takes over. And the third assumption to avoid is not trusting your people. Many leaders involve people in work, but very few of them actually put their people in positions where the desired result depends on that person's thinking. And it leads to bottlenecks such as what happens when a decision has to be made because there's not enough time for it to be run upstairs first. Or what happens when someone has to weigh the trade-offs and make a call and live with the result. When people aren't placed in situations like that, they learn very quickly that their role is to execute, not to think, to just stay in their lane. And over time, they stop offering more than what they truly could. That's the real work of leadership. Once you start seeing the difference between average performance and high performance, it becomes hard to ignore how much value might actually be sitting right in front of you, unused every single day. That's worth thinking about today.